Hey everybody, and welcome to this video. Today I'm going to show you how to install NetBackup uh, through the AWS Marketplace. So what we're going to do is we're going to set up a VPC, create a key pair, then through the Marketplace we're going to set up a NetBackup 9.1 environment with a master server or a primary server, a media server, and a cloud point server. So hopefully I'm going to walk through that. There will be a document provided along with this video. In that document there will be things like the usage insights key. I'll even include a license key, and that will kind of be a step by step to help you work through it. And this video is there to kind of help you, to show you what you need to do. So the first thing we want to do is to create a key pair. So we're logged into our AWS homepage. You can go up to services and click on EC2. And if we scroll down, we can click key pairs. So here we can see all the key pairs that are already created, but we don't have the corresponding files for these, so we need to create a key pair. So we give the key pair a name. In this case, we can do MBU demo, for example, because this is a demo. We do want the RSA type, and we want to use a .ppk file because we'll be using PuTTY. So once we've given the key a name and we've selected ppk, we can click create key pair, and we'll see up here automatically it downloads a file. So we need to make sure we know where that file is. And if we look down here, we can see there's our key pair. So the next step is to create a VPC. So we'll go up to search and type in VPC. And we can see here, first option, VPC, kind of a purple icon. We click that and we're given our VPC dashboard. So there are already a number of VPCs created, but I'm going to be creating a new one specifically for this demo. And what I've found the best thing to do is to use the VPC wizard. So this kind of makes sure everything with the VPC is set up properly, because I can almost guarantee that any problems you will face in installation down the road will probably be due to problems with your VPC. So I will click the launch the VPC wizard, and we want to create a VPC with a single public subnet. So this first option here. There are other options, but we'll select the first one. So we click select, and we're given our options. So here we can actually input some of the information, some of the parameters for our VPC. So what we can do for this is basically just choose any IPv4 address that doesn't already exist or is not already associated with an existing VPC. So if I just use, for example, 565 or 56, 00/16, that'll work. So you can see here we get the error because we need to change this. But going back to the CIDR block of the actual VPC, so we can enter any random numbers in the first two fields. Obviously, if you're looking for kind of a specific IP address, or you know what you want, you can obviously edit that, and if you want to play around with in more detail, you can do that. But for this kind of demo, just to get a basically just to get an environment up and running, this is kind of my method. Just enter a random number between 0 and 192 in the first one, and I believe 164, 0 and 164 in the second one. And then we do 00/16. So it's very important that for the CIDR block of the VPC, we do /16 and 00. So, for example, if you were entering this, you could enter 7.22 or 102.51, or you can even use the parameters I've used. Something very important as well, just need to mention, is that make sure you know what region you're in and you operate within this region throughout. So I'm currently US East. This VPC is only hosted in this region on AWS, meaning if you open set up some instances in US East Ohio, for example, it's not gonna find the VPC. It's not gonna work. So make sure you operate within the same region throughout. I believe it's not important which region you select, as long as you keep the same one. So that's our CIDR block there. We don't need IPv6. We can give our VPC a name. So we can do MBU VPC, for example. Right, now we need to enter the IPv4 of our subnet. So we're actually going to give it the same parameters as above. So 556.0.0, but instead of /16, we'll do 24. So within, so for our, as I mentioned, for our CIDR block of our VPC, we do /16. For our subnet CIDR, we do /24. And again, just same IP address, but /24. So for the availability zone, we're going to select US East 1A. Make sure you remember this because you will actually have to select that later. So I always just select the first one. It's easiest. We'll give it a name. We can call that MBU subnet. We don't need to change any of that. And we can click Create VPC. So you can see it runs through here. And once the VPC is created, we'll get this message and click OK. And we can view our VPCs. So the VPC we just created was MBU VPC. We can click there. Check some of our options. If we go into subnets, it's being a bit slow. Oh, there we go. So yeah, MBU subnet was just what we created. So we can click on that. And this is a very important step, is we need to check whether we have been assigned a IPv4 address. So we can see here that we don't have auto-assign public IPv4 addresses on, and we need to change this. So we'll go on to Actions, Modify Auto-Assign IP Address, Settings, and Enable Auto-Assign, and click Save. So now our subnet will be automatically assigned a IPv4 address, and that means that we can actually access the internet, and all of this will work. So now we can check that that's here. Perfect. Right. So we've created a key pairs. We've created our VPC and subnet. The next step is to open the marketplace. So we can search marketplace. And we can click subscriptions. So these are actually my subscriptions here. But if that doesn't come up, you can just search for Veritas and click down here, see all 11 results in Marketplace. So that takes us then to the Marketplace. So once you've actually subscribed to them, they will show up in your subscriptions, which you can do here, manage subscriptions. But if this is your first time, I think it's easier to do it this way. So we see here Veritas NetBackup 9, bring your own license. So that's version 9, but of course 9.1 is now available. So we can just find the one that doesn't have a version number, and that's the 9.1. So if we click that, we are given kind of an overview. We can check our latest version here, 9.1. Perfect. Scroll down. Again, make sure we're in the right region. But as I said today, we are going to be creating a primary, media, and CloudPoint server. And so then when we're all good with that, we can click Continue to Subscribe. Continue to Configuration. And again, primary, media, CloudPoint server. So 9.1 software version, that's perfect. Region, yes, US East. Continue. And we want to launch CloudFormation. Just tidy up my tabs. So we've taken to this page that says create stack. We are taking a template from the marketplace. That's why it will say template is ready and give a URL. So this is perfect. And this is why we go through the marketplace, because it gives us that template. And then we get to the specify stack details page. So this is everything we need to enter to set up our master, media, and CloudPoint server. So we can give the stack a name. We can just do MBU demo again, because that's what we'll be using throughout. And we can enter some parameters. So we need to give our primary server a name. This is something we need to remember. And we need to make sure we know later on. So I'm just going to enter primary.demo .mbu or -mbu, sorry. So here you can select your instance type. So this instances are basically what determine how much CPU you have, how much RAM you have, and what kind of networking. I'm going to leave that as standard, as default. I'm going to give us 500 gigs for the primary server. Again, you can change that, but that's perfect for me. Then we need a media server name, same as the primary server. We need to have a name that's memorable. So I'm just going to do media demo MBU, for example. Again, I'm going to leave the instance types as standard, and I'm going to give it an installation volume size of 1000. I want my CloudPoint to run on Red Hat 7. Again, instance type is perfect. I don't need to touch any of these optional CloudPoint settings today. And then we're going to move on to common instance configuration parameters. So for SSH, we need a key pair, and that's the key pair we created earlier. So in this case, that's MBU demo. Do we want to use an existing VPC? Well, we created a VPC earlier, so we do. So we will select true, and we can enter the details for that VPC. So from the drop-down, we can find our VPC, which was MBU-VPC, and our subnet associated with that VPC. So that was MBU subnet. The availability zone was the one that we set for the subnet as well. So that was US East 1, and the VPC CIDR block. So in this case, this is just literally the IP address of our VPC. So that's 556.0.0-16. Do we want to create a new DHCP option set for this VPC? So this says that the VPC containing the NetBackup servers needs a DHCP option set associated with it in order to resolve host names, of course. So select true if you want the stack deployment to create a DHCP option set for your VPC, but it will overwrite existing ones. The VPC actually comes with a DHCP option, so we're going to select false. We need a server domain name. So the option, the kind of info here says that it must correspond to an existing Route 53 hosted zone associated with VPC. So Route 53 is AWS's kind of DNS service, if you will. So if you already have set up through Route 53 a domain, you can use that. However, you can also just set up a new domain, which will be hosted, for which a hosted zone will be created. So we haven't used Route 53 to set one up, so we are just going to create our own one. So in this case, I'm going to just do Veritas .demo.io, for example. And this is now my domain name. So for example, the address of my primary server will be primary-demo-mbu.veritas-demo.io. So AWS automatically creates a kind of DNS response for this. Is there an existing hosted zone for this domain? So select true if Route 53 hosted zone associated with this VPC already exists. So have we set up our domain or our DNS service for that domain through Route 53? No, we haven't. We're going to select false. So I hope that's clear. Basically, you have the option to set up a DNS service with the use of a tool called Route 53 on AWS. But in this case, because we've created a VPC and we're not using Route 53, we can set up our own domain, which we named here, And then we're just letting AWS know that this domain doesn't exist and it needs to create a new one. Then this whole section is only if we need to create a VPC direct in this wizard, which we don't because we already did that. And then we get some installation parameters. So the NetBackup service username, well, I'm going to make that NetBackup admin. Make sure you remember this. Then we need a NetBackup license key. So this can just be any current key that works. So I've just got one here. Paste that, and we need a NetBackup usage insights customer registration key as well, which is here. So these normally come as a JSON file, so like a Java file, but you can open it in Notepad and it will get out this weird kind of nonsensical text that will look something like this. Just select all of it and copy, and we're just going to paste that straight into there, so it should look something like that, and it's happy with that. I am going to include both of these keys in the document just to make it super quick if to set one up. NetBackup license keys are available on Vino, for example, as well. But this usage insights key, I believe, is the same for everybody, so this will be valid, and you can use this one. It's the easiest way to find that. So then we need a CloudPoint username. I'm going to set that up as sysadmin. I'm going to give it a password. Make sure you remember these, because when we are setting up our CloudPoint server later, we will need to enter these. We don't need to, this is optional, so we'll leave that. We're going to leave it as port 443 as standard, that's okay. And then these last four options are optional, so that's perfect. We can click next. So next we can add some tags, some permissions. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually click preserve successfully provisioned resources. This means basically this launcher, that we just filled out, will create 3 instances, so 3 virtual machines running in AWS, and on each of those it will install the server software. So usually there's no problem with setting up the instances, but there might be a problem with installation of NetBackup. I click preserve successfully provisioned resources because that means you can SSH into the instance and kind of maybe figure out what's wrong with it if you get a failure. If you select roll back all resources, all stack resources, it will delete everything once it fails, if it fails. And we're going to leave all of this as standard. We can click next. And that's all okay. We can check everything we've entered as well. So that's our key. And we leave all of that as okay. We need to acknowledge these. Yep, that's okay. And we can click create stack. So now we'll be taken to the CloudFormation page. And that's going to now work for about, 1 or 2 hours. Have a bit of patience. And it's going to create 3 instances, 1 primary server, 1 media server, and 1 CloudPoint server. Now, one thing we can do while we are waiting for that to set up is to actually create a Windows instance. So let me go to Services, Compute, and EC2. We go up to we can click under Instances, click Instances. And we can see that actually it's already started setting up our primary server, but we're just going to leave that. That's still very early days. It's setting up the instance first, and then, as I said, installing the NetBackup software. But in order to access the primary server, we need to create a Windows instance within this network so that we can actually access the web UI and things like that. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to launch an instance. So up here under EC2 instances, we can click launch instances. Lots of instances. And we can scroll down, and we're just going to do Windows because we want to install Firefox, we want to install the Java UI, and Windows is best for that. So we can set up a 2019 server machine. We're taken through this wizard. We're going to need, I think, we're going to need a little bit of storage. a little bit of CPU, a little bit of RAM, but not too much, and some decent networking. So I think here T3 medium, we're going to have 2 cores, 4 gigs of RAM, and 5 gigabit networking. I think that would be perfect for us. We can click next to configure some instant details. So this is a really important step. Don't just click review and launch because we need to set up our VPC. So the network we want is an MBU VPC. We want to use the subnet that is associated with that, so that automatically filled in MBU subnet. And we want to enable auto assign public IP address. So this means that our instance can actually connect to the internet, which is very, very important. Then we'll leave everything else as standard. Make sure we have a network interface and that we're going to be giving it an IP. We can click next to add storage. And I'm going to give it 45 gigs because Windows, the minimum is for Windows about 30 gigs, I believe. Give a little bit spare just for the JavaGUI and Firefox, and then we can click review and launch. So we're going to get these warnings. That's okay. We will have to pay for this instance, but that's also fine because we need the performance. So we click launch. Now we'll choose an existing key pair and we'll use the same key pair that we used before to create our NetBackup instances. This is very important. We need to make sure that we have the key file for this key pair, because otherwise we can't access our instance and we can't access NetBackup. So we'll click launch instances. And our instance is now launching. So we can view our instances. So what's happening now is our Windows machine is being set up. And this is the Windows machine that it's not running any NetBackup. It's just a Windows machine within our VPC, so within our network. And we're going to, from that machine, we are going to access the primary server through the web UI, through SSH, and also through the Java UI. So we're going to need this Windows machine basically to control NetBackup. And that's why I've set it up within the same network, so that it's much easier to control or to get access to NetBackup. So we're just going to let that sit. It's firing up our Windows machine, which I'm actually going to rename here Windows, just to make it easier. This is our primary server. In fact, I'm not going to rename that until that's fully installed, just in case. And we can also go back to CloudFormation. Stacks. And we can, here's our stack. We can check events. So here you can see, so actually, even after this is created successfully, some of these will still stay create in progress. That's fine. As long as it says here, create complete, like on this one, for example, it's green. As long as it says create complete on MBU demo, we know everything is good. So as I said, it's setting up the VM, it's going to install NetBackup, and once that's done, we're going to come back to that and start setting up NetBackup. Right, so the servers have now been created. We can see here that we get the notification create complete. So we can go back onto services EC2. And we can see instances. So now we have our media server. So we'll rename that just to make it super clear what's what. Our media server, our primary server, and we have our CloudPoint server. Perfect. So now the next step is to SSH into our primary server in order to set up a user and then grant RBAC permissions to that user and then log into the web UI. So what we're going to do is we're going to log into our Windows machine. So I'm going to click the tick and click connect, and go over to RDP client. So we're going to connect to the desktop through RDP. Now, you can see here that we have a username of administrator, and the password, it doesn't show our password. We need to click get password. So we'll click get password. And we see we need to decrypt the password with our key pair file. Now this only works with a .pem file. So when we created our key pair at the beginning, we actually got a .ppk file. So we need to convert from .ppk to .pem. So in order to do that, we are going to open PuttyGen. So this is something that you can just download online for free. And we're going to use this to create to convert, sorry. So we're going to load an existing key, and you see it opens up downloads, and we have MBU demo. So this is the key that automatically downloaded when I created my key pair. I'm then going to go to conversions, and I'm going to click export open SSH key. It will ask you if you want to use passphrase. No, I don't want to. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to call it MBU demo. So this is one I created yesterday. And so you call it whatever you like, but make sure that you name it a .pem file. So if it's when it says here save as type, make sure that all files are selected if you have another option. And then file name, so save it as the file name .pem and click save. So in my case that'll overwrite, that's fine. And now we should have, go and download MBU, it should decrypt the password. So it brings up this, we click decrypt password, and password decryption was successful. So now we can access our password. So we're going to download the remote desktop file, click open file, yep, and it's going to ask for a password, so we're just going to copy and paste. You can now close PuttyGen. Yep, that's all fine. And we should connect. Perfect. So we are now logging into our virtual machine that's running in AWS within the same VPC as our NetBackup servers. So we're just loading in. And this is kind of a first indication that your Windows machine is connected to the network, and that's incredibly important. So we need to be connected to the internet. If you're unsure whether we are connected, you can open command prompt. And we can ping Google's server. So that's 8.8.8, and that should work. So now we see we are receiving replies from them. We know we're connected to the internet because it's incredibly unlikely that Google servers would be down. So we're in our virtual machine, and we need to open Internet Explorer. Now, sadly, the security policies on Internet Explorer are a bit of a pain. So we'll keep asking you whether you want to load in different things, but just takes a bit of patience. So we're going to type in, I guess, just Firefox. And you can see, yep, that's fine. We need to add Bing to our approved websites. Okay, we'll just add that. There we go. We can close that because we have our results. It'll keep asking to load things because Bing is trying to load things. Right, then we need to click add again Mozilla. Yep, that's fine. As you can see, it is a bit of a pain, but it doesn't take too long. We need to add our installer or our download link. Sometimes it comes automatically, sometimes it doesn't. I'm just going to click download again. Click run. So once we are in Firefox, everything will be a little bit easier. So we can now close that. This machine is actually a little bit slow, but the network performance is good. So it's really up to you what kind of instance you choose, depending on price point and things like that. Right, perfect. So the next thing to do would be to download Putty. So just Putty, download Putty. So we are running 64-bit. Okay, perfect. So we have now installed Putty. So we can close our virtual machine again, and we're back on AWS. And we can go back to instances. Now, it'll probably be the case if we click, if we just try to access our primary server. So we can click connect, we can click SSH, because that's what we're using with Putty. You'll see that we get this error message here. So port 22 is not open. Now SSH requires port 22 to be open on the primary server in order to communicate with it. So what we need to do is we need to add that to our security group. So we can go back to EC2. And if we scroll down here, we can scroll down to security groups. So here we can see here that it does actually give it a name. And this is our primary server security group. So just look for MB primary server security group, SG, and it'll come up with this. So we can scroll down and see our inbound rules. So if we click edit inbound rules, we can see here that port 22 is actually not open. So we can add a rule, and from this drop down we can click SSH, and you see it automatically sets the port range to 22. And so our network is 556.0.0. So again, we're just going to put that in 556.0.0/16. Click OK. So that means now any computer within our network will be able to use port 22. You can, of course, open it to, for example, 0000. It will open to everything, but that's a security risk, so we're not going to do that. Right, so now when we go back to EC2, we see our instances. We want to SSH into our primary server, so we select that, click connect. It'll still come up with this error, but that's okay. We can see now if it works. So what we'll do is we will copy this and go back into our Windows machine, our virtual machine, and open Putty. So Putty, and we can put our host name in. Now, if we try to open that, you'll see it doesn't work. That's because we need our key file as well. So we need to somehow get that into the virtual machine. So you can do that however you like. I'm going to do it through the RDP client. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to exit that. I'm going to show my instances. I'm going to go to Windows, and of course it signs me out. 1 second. Oh. So, sorry about that. We go back to EC2, instances, and Windows. So we click connect again, use RDP. So instead of downloading the RDP file, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to type on my laptop, so not the virtual machine, I'm going to open remote desktop connection. I'm going to copy the public DNS, paste that in there, and then I'm going to click Show Options. I'm going to go to Local Resources. Down here, More, and I'm going to make sure that my drive is selected. So that means that you'll be able to access the C drive from inside the virtual machine. So I'm just going to move, just to make it a bit easier, I'm going to move the MBU demo key to the desktop, because that's the key that we need. Oh, in fact, that was the wrong key. We need this one. So I'm going to put that on the desktop. Close that again. And click OK. Click Connect. It's going to ask us for our password. So we click Get Password. We're going to have to do what we did again earlier. So we're going to use our PEM file. Oh, that's the wrong file. Which of course is now on the desktop because I moved it. There it is. Decrypt password. Perfect. That's our password. And paste and go. Yep, all good. Right, so now we're back in our machine. And what we're going to do is we are going to, first of all, let's move our key onto the desktop. So we're going to go into this PC, and we can see here we have our network drive. Click there. I'm going to go into my desktop of my laptop. So users, Ben Jeffries, that's me. Desktop. And find my key file. So there it is. Just going to take that there. This is where the good network connection kind of pays dividends. You're going to see that we get not a good speed, but this was a very small file, so hopefully that worked well. Perfect. So now we have our key, and we can putty back into our instance. So putty, what we're going to do is we're going to minimize that. We're going to go back to our instances. I hope this is not too complicated. I'm going to click on our primary server, click connect, SSH, just make sure absolutely we have the right public DNS. Go back in here, paste that. Then we go to SSH down here and expand that, click auth, browse for a private key, which of course is on our desktop. And a little trick that I like to do is to just save this as primary, and it means that we don't have to keep finding that file every time we click save, and then every time we can just click that and it'll open. Okay, so now that we're in putty, and as soon as we get this login screen, we know that we have done everything right so far and we're in. So the username is going to be EC2user. It'll authenticate with the key and we're in. So now we need to add a new user. These commands will be included in the document, so we can get those. And in this case, we want to do this. So you can see I made a mistake there. We're just going to paste that. So sudo user add netbackup So in this case, it will tell us that the NetBackup admin user already exists, which is fine. We then want to change the password of that user, and it will ask us for a password. Perfect. And now finally we need to grant RBAC permissions. So we can see here, so it's sudo user blah blah blah. It's a Unix password. Primary demo MBU. Our DNS in this case is veritas.demo.io, and our user is still NetBackup admin. So click that, paste that, and that should work. Perfect. So now we are done with putty. I think pretty much. Don't need to change any bp.config files because that's all done automatically because we used the from the marketplace we used the wizard that creates all 3 servers. So now what we can do is we can go into Firefox and we can type HTTPS. So we need to enter an FQDN. That's normally just the primary server name followed by the domain name. So in this case it's primary-demo-veritas-demo.io/webui. And once we get this nice potential security risk, we know that we are in the right place. So we're going to accept the risk and continue. And we can see here the lovely little animation letting us know that we are successfully logging into the web UI. So the username is the username we just set up. Backup admin. The password is the password we just set in PuTTY. I'm going to save that because it saves time. And we can see here that we are in. So we are greeted by this nice little page where we can configure storage, discover assets, blah, blah, blah. I'm not going to do any of that now. That's just, this is a normal version of NetBackup. So however you want to configure your storage is up to you. But I can make sure that everything is showing up properly. So if we go down to security and click hosts, we can see here we have our primary server, our media server, and our CloudPoint server. Now, for whatever reason, the CloudPoint server sometimes doesn't get a proper name. It just has an IP address. This is now the kind of FQDN of that CloudPoint server, so that's worth bearing in mind. But if we go to cloud, for example, CloudPoint servers, you can see here we have an active CloudPoint server, which means that all of our virtual machines show up. So for example, my Windows machine is now here. I can choose to back that up. I need to create a protection panel first. That's fine. I can do that later. But yeah, CloudPoint server is set up. We can see here that's all good. So the last thing to do really is to just install the Java UI, I think. Again, most things can be done in the web UI, but of course the Java UI does have some things the web UI doesn't. So the way I'm going to do that is I downloaded it from Datastorm. I will include the link in the booklet. But I'm going to I've downloaded the Java UI file. I've moved it to my desktop on my PC, on my laptop. So now I can again access my network drive. Go to users. Me. Desktop. Now this is where our slow kind of internet connection shows up, because when we click desktop, now we don't want to, yeah, I have loads of rubbish on my desktop, including our NetBackup file. We move in there, add-ons. So this is the folder I downloaded from Datastorm, and we have the Java RAC. So this is where our slow internet connection shows up, because we want to move it to the desktop. We need to move it locally to the machine, otherwise it won't work and it will be incredibly slow. So this file is fairly big. You can see now it's really slowing down. In fact, it doesn't know how big it is. Yep, half a gig. So it's going to take a while to transfer. And I'm just going to let that sit. Okay, so now that the Java UI folder has transferred, we can open that up and we should see that it's made up of these pieces of data. So 4 bits of data, a DLL file, an application file, and a Windows installer file. So we click Setup, click Yes, And we're shown this screen. Click Next. We will agree with the license agreement. I'm just going to do a typical installation and click Install. So now what we're doing is installing the JavaGUI on this local Windows, this Windows machine. Sorry, it's not local. It's running in our VPC, but it's separate from the primary media and CloudPoint server. But it's hosted in AWS. So now that we've installed that, we can click down here to Veritas NetBackup. We are using 9.1, so we'll click 9.1. Just close that. And here you see it'll install like that, and it'll ask for a host name. So because I've already done this, it's actually showing the correct details, but it will say, it'll probably be the right thing, but it will be, it'll actually have the IP address, the private IP address of this machine. So what we're going to do is we just minimize, we go to EC2 instances. So again, we're looking back at our VMs. If we click on our primary server, we need to find our IPv4 private address. So this is the address within the network, isn't it? So that's 556.0.173. So we go back into our Windows VM and we enter that. So that's 556.0.173. I'm going to be using a username and password. The username is the username we put in through PuTTY. So in this case, mine's NetBackup admin. And the password is also the password that we put in with PuTTY. It's the same password that you use to log into the web UI. So we click login. It'll probably come up with some warnings and stuff about certificates. Just click yes, yes, yes. And that's fine. And then you can, you're into the JavaGUI. So if we look at our devices, for example, sorry, not devices, storage units. We haven't created any yet, of course. We don't have any drives. Yeah, so we're in the JavaGUI. If I'd set up sort of storage unit groups in the web UI, or I could do it here as well, they'd show up. So I guess we can do that. Just check that the master server shows up. Sorry, the media server. So here we are. We can see our media server is alive and well, and it's connected within the JavaGUI as well. So that's basically been a how-to video on installing NetBackup in AWS from Marketplace. So we've set up a primary server, a media server, and a CloudPoint server, and we've installed the JavaGUI and accessed NetBackup through the web UI as well. So thank you very much for watching.